Where did Druids come from? Well, dag the agus fáilte. Hi, hello, and welcome. Jon O'Sullivan here at Pagan School. And that is the Kester question there. Now, you might think it's they're people and they're born the same way people do as an answer, but that's not the question I'm getting into. It's less about their roles in society, which, is an extensive thing to explore. It is more a question of, do we know physically where they come from? Is there some location? Is there some specific kind of connection to a location that points to the origins of Druids? And it's a hard one to answer. So much so that some of the earliest resources of information that we have about Druids also disagreed on this very topic. And from their writings, we have something to explore. And so, to really give the names of the individuals we're talking about here, we have the very famous Greek writer by the name of Strabo, Strabo. And then, of course, we have the very, very famous Roman writer and conqueror and emperor, Julius Caesar. And so at the time that Julius is focusing on his conquest of Western Europe, he is, of course, interacting with many different tribes in all of the different landscapes. It's a great, fascinating resource to understand what his writings tell us about the cultures that he observed, even though we need to be aware that what he observed is through his own lens as the colonizer or the conqueror in these circumstances, and as a Roman raised with his own personal beliefs. But he was able to see, or he looking at these varied tribes in these locations, noted that there were specific individuals that fulfilled rather unique or esoteric roles for their community. And in trying to explore where that came from within those, he predominantly was talking about a lot of the tribes in Gaul, but he observed Gaul, which is modern day France, but he observed similar people in other tribes in different locations. And he postulated that these esoteric individuals came from Anglesey, which is an island in the islands that include Britain and Ireland. So he suggested that that's where they came from, and they came into Gaul and they provided their Druidic teachings and skill. Strabo actually disagreed. Strabo believed that, and actually there's a fascinating quote which I pulled out here for it. Um, no, it wasn't Strabo. Sorry, it was Pliny. Yeah, the other very famous Greek guy, Pliny, known as Pliny the Elder, who, if you wanted to look up his writing, so it was Pliny and Julius who disagreed because Pliny was of the opinion that Druids came from Gaul. They were from Gaul, but that they would travel, and they would travel to the islands of Britain or Anglesey in order to access or gain knowledge and experience to then come back as trained Druids. So both of these guys have a differing opinion of where Druids actually come from, but it's Pliny's description which I think absolutely is fascinating for his perspective on these individuals within their communal cultures and their tribal natures. And Pliny suggests that the origins of the Druids is in Gaul, but he refers to them traveling to Britons or the islands that include Britain and Ireland and now, and he describes it as the empty voids of nature ruled by magic. And so Pliny, writing about the islands that include Britain and Ireland, they are these empty voids of nature that are just magical. He's pretty much referring it to the cultural context of the Wild West from an American context, which is known now because of movies. But it's this idea that it is this weird place off on the edge of existence and reality, because that was the edge of the world in their understanding of things. But of course, Julius points at Anglesey specifically. Pliny says it's Gaul. They were in Gaul and they went out to training. But of course, there's no mention specifically of Ireland. And the follow-on point, really chasing along that information, is the Greek and Roman name of the island that would become known as Ireland, because they refer to it as the land of winter or the land of eternal winter, Hibernia. Now, there's still a lot of information around that, and that's where Hibernian and stuff still refers to the island. But it was this idea that why would you even bother? Like there was no Roman invasion of Ireland, there was no Roman conquest of Ireland. They made it into the British, the island that is Britain. They made it up as far as the northern sections. Emperor Hadrian built his wall. They can't exactly say claim that they fully conquered that island. But though we have Roman relics, we have Roman archaeology, we have stuff here on the island, it is more trade goods that we have seen and less Roman occupation. There aren't Roman roads, there aren't villa buildings or any of that kind of stuff here. So it shows a different level or a different attitude towards Ireland, in that it is this, if the islands of Anglesey and the islands that would become known as Britain are these voids of empty voids of nature ruled by magic, then what was the other island over? Empty voids of nature ruled by magic, and also the place where it's just always winter. So it's fascinating to understand and to look at these cultural contexts when we talk about Druids and where Druids come from and what roles they fulfill within their society. But we need to also take on board the fact that there is gaps in perspective because of cultural predispositions, colonizer mentality, and a lack of knowledge. If their view of the islands were that they're just empty voids of nature, then they would not take on board any understanding or inference of the people who exist in those landscapes, because we know that people existed in those landscapes during that time frame. Um, to leave you with another piece of information, to loop back to Strabo, because Strabo is actually an important person to look at. But as much as Strabo did a lot of writing, he also quotes older writings that we can point at. So we can point at older information that he's quoting on, which helps date the person who made that quote. He's like an academic coming on and say, "Oh, as per this person's writing in this previous book." And so he documents something that he read, which we don't have copies of anymore. And I pulled out that quote as well because it's really fascinating. Because Strabo quotes an earlier writer known as Posidonius, and Posidonius we can date to circa 125 BCE. So that's the year 125 before Common Era. Now, again, if we want to look at timelines, Newgrange is thousands of years older than that. So it shows occupants within a country. But anyway, Posidonius is writing about this, and he wrote about Druids from his perspective of the roles that they fulfilled within their society. And so the quote is, among all the tribes, generally speaking, there are three classes of men held in special honor: the Bardoi, the Ovites, and the Druidae. The Bardoi are the singers and the poets, the Ovites, interpreters of sacrifice and natural philosophers, while the Druidae, in addition to the science of nature, study also moral philosophy. So that's Posidonius's opinion of the roles and the facilities of these individuals who fall under the category of Druid. And those words do come down to us, and Ireland's own versions of those words exist in our old manuscripts and languages as well. So, where did Druids come from? Neat answer, not hard to say. They come from their tribes and their peoples. Can we say there's a set geographic location that they come from? No, there is not. But if you would like to explore more about what are Druids, what is a Druid, I actually taught a class on this. So you can go down, grab the link there below. It's called What is a Druid? And it's available over at the Irish Pagan School. Gaurav Mahagas, thank you very much. And until next time, look after yourself and take care. Goodbye.